Welcome to Middle School Walk and Talk, a podcast series offering heart, hope, and health to members of our middle school communities. Hosts Phyllis Fagel and Jessica McGuire talk all things self-care, student well-being, school culture, and more. Middle School Walk and Talk is designed to support the concepts found in the Successful Middle School, This We Believe, and is a production of the Association for Middle Level Education. To learn more, visit AMLE.org. Today's episode, Exactly Where I Need to Be, with guest Vernicca Wynter.
Welcome back to AMLE's Walk and Talk podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Vernicca Wynter. Vernicca is an educational leader, an entrepreneur, and a leadership wellness speaker. You're one of AMLE's most popular presenters at the association's conferences. Why do you think your work resonates so much with middle-level educators?
I think my work resonates because it comes from lived experiences. Having been in the classroom as an AP, as a principal at the district level, I really have a well-rounded approach to how I see our work in middle-level education. And I bring those lived experiences with me when I have my sessions, because sometimes there's things that we never talk about, but we need to in order for us to grow. And so I really lean into being transparent and being open about my journey and some of the lessons that I've learned so that I can help all of those that are attendees in my sessions.
Actually, that's a great lead-in, because before we even talk about the practical stuff, I would like to hear a little bit about your journey and your story and how you got to this place.
Absolutely. So I'm from South Florida. Both my parents were educators, and so I ended up as an educator as well. My background in terms of my bachelor's was in communications and psychology, but I really loved the idea of the impact that you're able to have as an educator. And so I started as a high school teacher and then became an assistant principal at the middle school level, did some time in elementary, and then I was a principal at the middle school level for several years. So I have spent time at the district level, and so I really just enjoy seeing the different paths that our students can take when they are in a space that is filled with love and support, and our educators are able to thrive accordingly.
What does that look like? What is that space that's full of love and support? And is there a practical way to translate that for teachers or educators who might hear that and think, okay, that is too abstract for me?
So I think when I say creating spaces of love and support, I'm really referring to valuing the perspectives that everyone brings to a situation and making sure that everyone feels seen and heard and appreciated for sharing what it is they bring to the situation, whether they're staff or whether they're students. And so as a teacher, that was always my approach, to create classroom spaces that students felt like, regardless of whether I'm a senior or a ninth grade student, whether I'm a straight A student or straight Fs, there's a space that I can show up and be honest about what I'm struggling with, what my strengths are, and have a space where I can ask questions and grow. And so when I became an administrator, not only did I model that for my teachers, but I also felt like you have to create an environment at schools where every student is valued. And so how are you creating courses that interest them? How are you creating clubs that get them excited to come to school? How are you asking them what they would like to see in order to be engaged in the educational experience? And as parents, you're asking your parents, what would you like to see? What do you value? And then for staff, what excites you? And how can we create electives and projects in our classes that align with your joy and your passions? And so when I say it's an opportunity to lead from that lens, I really feel like in every role, that has been at the forefront. So before I became a principal, I remember on my job interview, they said, what's most important? You know, is student achievement and data? And I said, I absolutely love data. But I believe that if you create an environment where your staff, your students, your parents, and your community feel like you see them and you value them, then the rest will take care of itself. And so when I became a principal, every year that I was a principal, it's one of the largest middle schools in the entire school district, I was able to maintain an official grade of an A, because at the forefront, we're committed to making sure that we are creating unique experiences for every single child, and therefore having high standards for every single student.
That's wonderful.
What are some practical ways that school leaders at the school-wide level or classroom teachers at the classroom level can provide these environments for students?
So one way is being just aware of the emotions that students face. And so check-ins are always important, and it looks different at various grade levels. You know, in the elementary level, sometimes it's like, show me the face that you are, you know, like your emoji for the day. Or at the middle and high school level, sometimes it can get a little more advanced in terms of them identifying their feelings. But creating a space where they can identify the emotional state that they're in and recognizing the opportunity to regulate their emotions. And so whether you are taking a moment to do 1 minute of breathing, or having a regulation safe space in your classroom where you have different opportunities for students to be able to step away and regulate their emotions and then return back to the space. Those are just a few ways that you're able to do that, but also the language that you're using in the classroom, making sure that you're using inclusive language and setting the expectation that everyone should be able to be honest about their lived experience and not feel like they can be embarrassed or anything because they're sharing their thoughts or they don't know something and they want to ask a question. And so really ensuring that the language that's used in the classroom is supportive, one that is comfortable and accepting, and if you don't verbalize that, then it doesn't just happen. And so it's important that teachers create those spaces and create those norms. Things like affirmations are always helpful, you know, whether you're starting the class or ending the class, but helping train them in what self-talk looks like, because as adults we need it, so of course our students need it too.
Can you give a few examples of affirmations you've used or like?
Absolutely. So sometimes we show up in spaces that we don't necessarily know that we're confident and that we belong in. And so one affirmation is, I'm safe and I belong here. Another affirmation is, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Another affirmation may be, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and I can walk in my excellence. You know, and just small reminders that if we need it, we might need to say it to ourselves or make it a part of our classroom culture, so that when we are doubting ourselves and our abilities, we're in a space where we can remind ourselves of those things.
How do you know if the culture needs attention? If things are off in some way, what are the signs?
So some districts do some type of youth mental health first aid training and really help their educators or their support staff to readily identify students that are in mental health distress or need to be connected to mental health support. So that's always something that's helpful in terms of promoting that at the school site and making sure that your staff are trained in how to do that. But even beyond that, you know, assessments matter, surveys matter, and so creating a regular cadence of school culture assessments is always helpful. Not only for the staff, but also for the students, so that you can and for the parents, so that you can kind of get a feel for whether they feel like the supports are there, whether they feel respected, whether they feel like they have a safe space to negotiate their conflicts or whether they need to bring stressful situations to the table and require some level of assistance or mental health supports. And so surveys are a great way to gauge that, and if you make that a part of a regular cadence, then you can gauge when there might be a need to kind of step in and do something else.
Okay, I like that, and listening to student voice, right? Yeah. And that's been kind of a message resonated through a lot of conversations that we have been having. I guess conversely to like a culture that might need support, when you walk into a school, what are some visible signs that the school culture is thriving and students are thriving?
So in general, when you look at emotional intelligence or mental health, you're looking at things like attendance, you're looking at behavior, you're looking at discipline data, because those are outward things that kind of show where something might be going on and where some gaps may be for possible supports.
Sure.
And so those are some of the starting places. And then when you have a culture assessment that you're also able to gauge, then you're able to see things like, are the staff taking off a lot of sick days or vacation time, right?
Yeah.
Are the students out a lot? What may be the reason for that? Do you have a high level of bullying happening? Do you have a high level of fights happening? Is there a safety concern that's underlying some of those things? And so if you don't have certain things in place, then those numbers will show you that there may be a culture issue and that there's an opportunity to possibly put in additional mentoring programs, additional clubs and activities for students. Because one of the things that's always helpful is when students feel connected, right? As adults, we want to feel connected.
Right.
And so as I'm working with educational leaders, I'm always kind of advocating for an opportunity to ensure that you are creating spaces that people can feel connected, whether it's through common interests or future career paths or anything that can possibly allow you to be less isolated and feel like you're navigating stressful times alone will make a difference.
So getting more into the weeds, I know you do a lot with mind-body work, with mindfulness, which I think sometimes intimidates teachers. It feels like you're supposed to be some kind of mindfulness guru before you can even do a simple activity. Are there any techniques or favorite mind-body strategies that you have seen even the most resistant teacher embrace and feel comfortable using?
So breathing is usually the easiest to start with because you don't necessarily have to follow a script. So some of the most resistant individuals have been like, okay, I can do something like a soft belly breath, or I can do box breathing, or I can do balloon breath, because it's really hard to mess it up. And so usually breathing exercises like that are a good starting point.
Yeah.
And then emotional check-ins is another starting point. Like just the idea of greeting students, at the door, or creating a space where you're just asking them how they're feeling for the day, and if they do need, some additional support, that there's a way for them to receive that from you. So I think that those are good starting points, so that even if you don't feel the best at leading those things, then you're still able to at least, open the door. And then there's so many resources online that if you don't feel comfortable, you can hit play and they will lead them through a 1 minute or a 2 minute or a 5 minute breathing exercise or visualization activity. I know with a lot of leaders, I lead a lot of mindful practices so that they can regulate their emotions, because ultimately the leaders and the adults in any organization or in any school building really set the culture and set the tone. And so if we are operating as a thermometer, then it's a whole lot better than being the thermostat.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we're setting the right tone, and the best way to do that is to make sure that we're able to regulate ourselves and therefore help others to navigate when they are feeling a little dysregulated as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know you do some work with teacher burnout along the same lines. What is your best piece of advice or practical tip for teachers who maybe are noticing that they care a little less about what they're doing, or are less motivated to learn new things, or just not feeling as in it as they have in the past? What would you advise them to do?
I would advise to reflect on why you decided to do this, because sometimes our plate gets so full that the why gets pushed to the side and is no longer on the plate anymore. And so if we can remind ourselves, why did I ever decide that this is what I wanted to do, or what moment happened that made me feel like I'm doing exactly what I meant to do. And if there's certain activities or certain events or things that you do that remind you of that, then create more of those experiences. So if doing projects lights you up and that's what excites you, but there's just never enough time because you're busy doing other things, then I would advise to create a space where maybe you just do one project a quarter or one project a semester, just so that you can rejuvenate the why and not allow the other things that you have to do overwhelm you to the point that you forget those pieces that make you really excited.
That's good advice.
This year on the Walk and Talk podcast, we're asking all of our guests one final question. And so it's kind of putting you right on the spot now. And
let's do it.
We'd like to know, what is one really intentional practice that you think every middle level educator could and should try right away to increase student well-being? So maybe one high impact, low burden thing that they could do.
Look students in the eye and notice what they're not saying, verbally or non-verbally, because oftentimes we miss it. And all it takes is a moment to look at a student's eyes and see they're having the best day ever or they're having the worst day ever. Yeah. And if you can take just that extra moment to just look and ask questions, you'll change your life forever. And that's why intentionality wins.
Thank you. I love that. Where can our listeners find out more and find more of your work?
So intentionality wins with a Y. .com is the best way to connect, and also on LinkedIn or Instagram as Intentionality Wins, and my email is info@intentionalitywins.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to connect with you.
Very nice to connect with you too.